Hello, happy Monday everyone. So today I thought I would talk about how the little things can actually throw you out of your routine and the importance of cognitive flexibility. Now, stick with me because I'll explain what cognitive flexibility is towards the end. But first, I want to share a story of a client. And it's a story about how we can easily get thrown off our regular routines, right? And we're going to talk about a client who worked out consistently for a year, which was every morning before work, so 5 times a week. The client is the longest the client has actually managed to stick to that kind of exercise habit. They were enjoying it, more importantly, enjoying the results, getting some progress, and really getting more confidence in the fact that they had now kind of embedded this routine. Then all of a sudden they stopped working out altogether, and obviously started to not feel so good and stopped making progress, right? And what happened? Well, apparently it was something as benign as going to the dentist, right? And you see, this client had a bit of a grinding issue with their teeth, which is a common issue for people who have stressful jobs or a lot on their plate or are busy, etc., etc. And and so rightly so, the client's dentist recommended that they get a retainer to help alleviate the impact of the night grinding on their teeth. Because, if anyone's suffered, I have, it gives you a bit of jaw stiffness and so on. It actually grinds away the enamel of your teeth and so on. And for the longevity of your health, you probably don't want that. So interestingly enough though, right, like the retainer, great idea. The only other thing is, right, that this simple retainer actually created some issues because this person's partner was a light sleeper. And so for them to get to the gym, they would actually, the night before, put their clothes out in a different room so they could get up, sneak out quietly, get ready, and then leave without waking up their partner, which is very considerate, right? Works really well. The problem is that now with the retainer, right, the usual triggers and the environment had been disrupted because now this person had to go into the master bathroom to wash their retainer, do all those sorts of things, and obviously were making noise, which quickly created a lot of friction between them and their partner. It also added time to their morning routine, and then they were kind of left with no option to either wake up earlier or to do a shorter workout, and they didn't like the idea of getting up earlier, and they didn't like the idea of doing only part or most of their workout, right? They didn't feel like it was good enough or wasn't going to be perfect enough. So they opted for the option of, it's just too hard, we'll just give it up and I'll try and work out after work. But of course, like most of us, if we don't get done the most important thing first thing in the morning, it seldom gets done because life gets away from us. Like even myself, who structures my life around training, quite often, and I'll make sure that I do get to training more often than not. Most of my workouts are in the morning for that reason, because my workday is pretty hectic, and there's other things that you've got to get done in the evening, right? And it's harder to work out in the afternoon after you've had a very long day. So that happened. And then, so building a routine that accommodated the new routine, whilst not a lot of effort, right, was just one more thing. And when you're a really busy person, or it's just that little bit of extra resistance, it can create havoc. I had another client as well who didn't have a car for a couple of weeks. And so their whole routine, it was an added barrier to get to the gym, right? So they just didn't train, even though they could have done a whole number of other things. And they did go for a couple of walks and so on. But just having those simple little things taken away from us can actually disrupt stuff. And we know this because we just came out of COVID and 2-year lockdowns and had a lot of our routines and usual way of doing things disrupted, right? But anyway, my point being is that one more thing is enough to put us off something that we want to do or need to do, right? Now, in this instances, it's really easy to say, well, if you just refer back to your why for exercising, you should be able to accommodate this change easily and look for pragmatic solutions, which is true, right? That's one of the reasons we have a deep why. It's one of those things to help us, find the resolve to overcome, challenges and obstacles so that we maintain cadence towards what's really important to us, right? And some of those pragmatic solutions could have been cleaning that potato later, working out for less time, or waking up earlier, as we mentioned before. But of course, whilst we might be able to refer back to the why in that, it still doesn't solve the time issue or the perceived time problem, right? And the issue, it wasn't just that this extra bit of friction was too hard. What it did is that it created a change that was resisted, and it was resisted here because there was a loss associated, right? There's a loss associated of time, or having, and then, or having the quality of the workout reduced, right? And so they didn't want to give that up, and they weren't ready to, they resisted that change, right? And so yes, the tiny changes to our routines can throw them out completely, right? And it's really easy for us to resist easy solutions because we don't want to lose something. In this case, it was the time and convenience and the quality of the workout, right? And even when the solutions are obvious, we sometimes resist because they cause friction or they're not exactly what we want to do. Like, we all have our funny little nuances, right? Like, we probably all put on our clothes the same way. There's certain ways that we like the kitchen sink to be tidy, for example, or certain ways that we like to eat our food, certain circumstances, certain morning routines that we like to do, there's certain things that we don't like to leave the house doing, like brushing our teeth before we leave, for example. And the client wasn't ready to accept getting up earlier, cleaning the retainer later, or cutting back on the workout, right? And it wasn't until, we worked with his coach to evaluate the trade-offs that the solutions, and to see the solutions, and then to, the encouragement to basically try them. So sometimes this is where having someone in your team can really help, right? Because it helps you to look at the simple solutions. They feel silly afterwards, but really unpack why you're resisting that. And then you need to work out the trade-offs, right? So is the trade-off of that slight bit of inconvenience worth not getting the results that you were enjoying? And in this case, it wasn't. So it was an easy way to find a solution. And basically, in the end, the client chose to clean the retainer later, even though that wasn't their preferred approach, because they preferred to do it as soon as they got up. But that was better for them in terms of, sacrificing the workout and having to get up earlier, right? And then, basically got back on track and started working out again every day. So whilst these sorts of things may seem trivial, like to yourself or even an outsider, we all get caught up, right, in our own attachment to how things should be done and how we can make them work. And the more we become, aware of these minor hiccups or setbacks, the more we develop and practice our cognitive flexibility, which is a different form of flexibility, which is a byproduct of, what happens when we tend to go on our health and fitness journey, right? And cognitive flexibility is the ability to appropriately and efficiently adjust one's behaviour according to a changing environment. That's like the official definition, right? But it's basically being able to be less rigid in our thinking and the way things need to be or should be, right? And our attachment to certain preferences that really don't serve it, apart from us just liking the way that things are, right? And obviously, what happens is that the better our cognitive flexibility, the better our problem-solving skills become, and obviously our resilience as well. And it's super valuable, right, if you think about it, in the world that we live in at the moment, where, most of the time things aren't going to be perfect, right? If anyone's had a perfect day recently, please do share, because I cannot remember the last time I had a perfect day where everything went perfectly according to plan. Well, actually I do, and then I really appreciate it, and I really want more of them, but it never happens that way, right? So basically, what we can't control sometimes, even the best laid plans, things will happen, or we don't quite get things the way that we want. And our ability, though, to kind of work with what we've got and what actually is happening makes all the difference between success and stagnation, right? So, you can either have your attachment to perfect conditions, or you can progress in spite of that and actually go for the messy stuff, right? So, really interested to see, either you can share some of your isms or non-negotiables, or preferences of some weird things that you just can't seem to let go of in terms of attachments, because I definitely have some, which, let me think of one. I'll have to think of one and add it in the comments. But the other question I'm going to leave with you as food for thought is, do you feel that you're flexible enough to work with what you've got, and how are you going to apply that to health and fitness